Hi students, so today's topic for discussion will be about the brain. So I am Harinee, Assistant Professor, Department of Psychology, the Standard Fireworks Rajaratnam College for Women, Sivagasi. Okay, so today we are going to discuss about the cerebral cortex. So this is the brain anatomy, or you can just have it as a outline of the cerebral cortex. Your cerebral cortex has four major functions, or four major structures. It will be of frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and your temporal lobe. This classification is given by based on the locations. So based on the location you will have four lobes divisions. So based on the structure you will have three divisions. You will have the midbrain, forebrain and the hindbrain. So we will just focus on the functions of the cerebral cortex first. So the cerebral cortex is something that intricate the fabric of interconnected neural cells that covers the cerebral hemispheres. So what is cerebral cortex? It is something that helps us in controlling and it helps us in information processing. So your parts in your cerebral cortex will be of corpus callosum, thalamus, hypothalamus, pituitary. These parts and all will be in your cerebral cortex. So coming to the structure of cerebral cortex, as we said earlier, each brain hemisphere is divided into four lobes, that is based on their prominent fissures. What fissures means is your visible part of the brain is called the cerebral cortex. In general, you have a visible part of the brain. You have deep fissures, you have sulcus, you have gyrus. The deep depressions you have, that is being called as your sulcus. The openings, like your upper openings, are called as gyrus. So your visible part, when you take out your brain, or when the brain is being investigated, taken out, it will have depressions such as sulcus, and you will have small depressions like gyrus. So your cerebral cortex is like a crushed paper. When you crush a paper and you just spread it out, you will see the crushed things, right? So that is how your brain looks. So your cerebral cortex has four lobes, as said earlier. These four lobes are frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital and temporal lobe. Your frontal lobe is prominent for thinking, judgment and reasoning. Your frontal lobe is the major part of the brain. It constitutes of 1/3 of the part, and that is very important for your judgment, reasoning, thinking, all these factors. When you do so, your frontal lobe is activated, your frontal lobe works and you do so. Your parietal lobe is something of senses. Senses here in the sense fully of your movements. Parietal lobe has its functions. So occipital lobe, which is situated at the back of your head, that is, it is responsible for your vision. So your senses through your light, your physical stimulus, your vision is responsible by the occipital lobe. Your temporal lobe is responsible for hearing. So your temporal lobe is just above your ears. Okay, that is your temporal lobe, which is important for your hearing. Okay, so looking about the functions of cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex is nothing but as we said earlier, it is about the basic opening structures. So while looking about the motor cortex, so motor cortex is the area of frontal lobes that controls the voluntary movements. Like if you want to walk, if you want to grab your glass of water, you are going to use your muscles to grab them. So your movements, your voluntary movements are responsible, or it is controlled by your motor cortex. Motor cortex is generally of controlling of voluntary movements. Yes. Your sensory cortex. Next is your sensory cortex. It is an area at the front of the parietal lobe. That is, after the motor cortex, there lies your sensory cortex. Girls, got it? So, this is your front of the parietal lobes that receives information from the skin surface and the sense organs. So, you could see the structure here. Okay, now coming to the visual cortex. So, visual cortex is located in the occipital lobe of the brain. Where is your occipital lobe? It is at the back of the brain. So, which is responsible for your vision. Your light, your stimulus, your light stimulus gets into your eyes. There your parts of your eyes comes in, your retina, iris, pupil, they all come in action, and there is a blind spot there, your image is, so you look into the stimulus. So, here visual cortex plays an important role. So, the brain here, so it is an MRI image. So, brain part there which is highlighted, that is a part which is responsible for recognizing your faces. Like if you see a person and you identify them as your dad, giving him his name, or you are calling them as Albert Einstein and Helen Keller. So, how do you identify them? That is because of the occipital lobe and your part highlighted there. Okay. Okay, so now coming to the auditory cortex. Auditory cortex is situated or located in the temporal lobe of the brain. Your auditory cortex is responsible for your like audition. If you hear something, that is because of your auditory cortex. If I am speaking and you are listening, that is because of the auditory cortex, the proper functioning of auditory cortex. Okay, now we have association areas. Like for example, when we go to a cinema or when we go to a theatre, you automatically take a popcorn and go. We always visit, we always do so. Why do we do so? Because of your association cortex. Association areas are integrated sensory information and your stored memories. So, your sensory information here will be the movie. Okay. So, your stored memories. So, you associate popcorn with a movie. So, here your sensory information is associated with the stored memories. So, that is why the ability to think will be only for the humans. So, more intelligent animals have increased uncommunicated or association areas of the cortex. That is all for today's class. Let us see in the next class. Thank you.